Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe now. Story number 1. It was 2006 and I was a student attending the American College Dance Festival, which was held at Boston University that year. I was 20 and I went to a small college in another state. There were about 10 of us who went on the trip. My college flew us out to Boston, but didn't have funds for hotel accommodation, so we all stayed with anyone we knew in Boston. One of my best friends from high school was studying in another college in Boston, so I crashed at her apartment for the festival. Each day we would start with some dance classes early in the morning on the BU campus. I took the subway to get from my friend's place to campus, and I had to take the very first train in the morning to get on there on time. The nearest subway stop was one of those very small and simple ones, where there was just a platform with stairs leading up to the street on either side. No employees or kiosks. I had little experience in navigating large cities and subway travel, and I was nervous to get around this way, especially since the early hour, and the small stop meant I was often there all by myself. So when I saw a worker in MTA, Massachusetts Transportation Authority vest, sweeping snow off the steps one morning, I was immediately relieved. Boy, was I wrong. I went down the stairs and sat on a bench on the platform alone. Shortly afterwards, the worker came and stood uncomfortably close to me with his broom. He kept looking at me out of the corner of his eye. I thought his behavior was creepy, and I noted to myself that he obviously had not had time to finish clearing the snow off the steps. I was getting really tense when a couple, who were being loud and appeared drunk from the night before, came down and waited on the opposite bench. The worker didn't move, kept side-eyeing me. The train came and was already very full. I grabbed one of the last remaining seats, and the MTA worker boarded the same car and stood near me. I could see his reflection in the window of the subway car as he stared at me for the whole ride. He didn't seem to be aware I could see him staring. When I got off at my stop, he got off too and started following me. Luckily, my dancer's legs propelled me through a big crowd of people, and I lost him as he followed me off the train. I had the deepest, creepy feeling about the whole thing. Still gives me the willies over a decade later. Story number 2. It's been a few days since this took place, and I'm still very creeped out. Nothing really happened, but it feels like a close call type of situation that could have gone very badly. This is my first and hopefully last time I post on this subreddit. I'm currently taking a first-year astronomy class in university for an easy credit. When we were discussing the planets, a professor mentioned that Jupiter and Saturn are highly visible in the southwest sky in the evening, and that the first star you see is actually Jupiter, which is pretty neat. I decided to go out that evening by the lake, and sure enough, was able to see Jupiter. Now, the light pollution in this town is very bad, but down by the waterfront the light is somewhat minimized. There are also no street lamps in the immediate vicinity, which makes stargazing very decent. I began to go down by the waterfront at dusk, around 7 p.m., and staying a few hours to observe and learn the constellations, using a stargazing app. I did this for almost 2 weeks straight, weather permitting. My professor also mentioned to the class that binoculars are better for stargazing than a telescope for beginners, so I bought a pair of binoculars online. A few nights ago, I decided to go much later, around 9:20 p.m. with my new binoculars for the first time. I wanted to try to take some pictures of Jupiter with my phone looking through the binoculars. I usually cut across a tiny parking lot to get down to the waterfront. It should be noted that the parking lot is beside a small historical tower, which has a little hill behind it. As I'm about to cross the dark parking lot, no lamps or light sources, I hear a "Hey," and I stop. I hear nothing else, and as the silence stretches on, start to get mildly creeped out. I turn around and start to walk back home, but as I'm nearing the street, I think to myself, you know what? No. I want to test these binoculars out. I ignore my gut feeling, but instead of crossing the parking lot, decide to go around the tower and sit on the little hill behind it, because I don't know who is by the water, and I don't want to risk it. The tower is closer to the street, which means there's a few street lamps nearby, but the tower blocks the light out enough. Huge mistake. As I'm fiddling with the binoculars and trying to take pictures, I notice two figures making their way up the hill in my direction. Now, that in itself is not a big deal, but I started to get the weird feeling once more. I just have this really strong gut reaction that something isn't right, and that I need to leave now. Again, I brush it aside and tell myself that I'm just being paranoid and stupid, and to just focus on what I'm doing. They're probably just out for a stroll. It is a nice night. When I put the binoculars down again, I notice that they're closer and still walking straight towards me. My eyes have adjusted to the dark by now, and I can see that they are two men. "Good evening," I say, trying to sound cheery and to ward off my worry, but I get no response. What's weird is that I know that they're within earshot, and a normal person would say hello back, right? One guy stops walking and looks out onto the street. The other guy keeps walking towards me and stops. Both of the men are backlit, and it's dark out, so I can't see their features very well. One of them seems to have a beard. Both are wearing large black coats. "Hello?" I ask very loudly. The guy with the beard is about 20 feet away from me, but I can't tell if he's looking at me or just in my general direction. I know that he's definitely within earshot at this point. He takes a few slow steps toward me and stops, 15 feet away. My mind is racing, trying to remember any self-defense techniques I learned in high school gym, but coming up empty. "Hello?" I ask again and again, get no verbal response. Instead, he takes a few more steps and pauses, 10 feet away. I just have alarm bells going off in my head at this point. The feeling of get out of here now has completely gripped me. It suddenly dawns on me that there's nobody around. It's just me and these two men behind the tower in the dark. I need to leave in a way that won't make them react badly. I pull out my phone, trying to keep an eye on the guy, hoping that he can't see my screen as I'm shaking so much that I'm struggling to open the phone app. I eventually manage to open it after what feels like an eternity. Pretend to dial a number, because this is a hand-me-down phone that I use to take pictures and video. There's no SIM card. My actual phone is home. "Hi, Mom," I say loudly, trying to steady my voice. "I'm looking at the stars. Yeah, they're really pretty." As soon as I say those words, they instantly start walking away. Part of me wanted to try to take a picture of them to possibly report them. I mean, what if this has happened before? But my gut instinct says to get away from the area. Since the tower is a circle, they could have easily just been walking around the tower to intercept me on the other side, so I didn't risk it. I didn't even try to pack up my binoculars properly. Just grabbed my stuff, loudly saying things like, "Yep, I'm on my way home," pretending to be on my phone, only hanging up once I was in a brightly lit area and around other people. Nobody followed me, thankfully. I'm still a little shaken up, which is admittedly a little silly since it's already been a few days, and I should be over it now because it was such a minor incident. I've had a few nightmares in which the situation is drastically a different ending. I won't let this event scare me away from stargazing, but I'll make sure to bring something to defend myself with. Tell my housemates where I am, what time I should be back, and when to come up and check on me the next time I go out. Story number 3. This all happened a few months ago. Me and my 4 friends, We're all 13, were sleeping over at my friend's house on a Saturday night. We all got to his house around 4. Eventually we decided to go to the McDonald's that was about 30 minutes away. After arriving at McDonald's, we ate our food, went to shop for about 15 minutes, and left. It was around 5:30 when we decided to go to the welfare that was near the shop. Now, in the UK, anyone who lives here will know that it gets pitch black at 5:30 p.m. in the winter, so it was very dark outside. To get to the welfare, it was either a 20-minute walk around the housing estate we were by, or cut through a forest, which would take about 10 to 15 minutes. We all decided to cut through the forest. We were all joking around, pushing each other to try and scare each other. Around 5 minutes before we got to the welfare, we all heard a twig snap to the left of us. We started laughing at my friend letting out a slight scream. We thought it was a small rodent like a squirrel or something. We were about to keep on walking when we saw our friend just frozen, staring into the woods. We all told him to hurry the fuck up, but he just wouldn't move. 2 of us decided to go towards my friend to see what he was staring at. Looking back now, I really wish we walked around the housing estate, because what I saw will never ever leave me, and I hope no one will ever have to experience this. I saw a man. He stood there staring at us, not moving. My friend took out his phone and turned on the torch and aimed it at him, and what I saw was just terrifying. The man had a knife clenched in his teeth, with the knife going through the side of his cheek. Blood dropped down his chin and on his clothing and on the ground. We all lost our shit screaming and running, trying not to trip on the mud or the bottles on the ground. When we reached the end of the forest, we were all red-faced and shaking. We all walked back to our friend's house, just reflecting on what just happened. We went on to have our sleepover and had a good time, except for the fact that we all kept thinking of what happened. We never told anyone about this, and I hope that I never meet that man in the woods again. Story number 4. For weeks, someone has been watching. Someone in a black truck. I honestly haven't thought much of it until everything started coming to light and started making sense. A few weeks ago, I noticed, after I drove to my friend's house, across the street from her house directly is a popular bank. There, a black truck with its headlights on bright would sit. It would stay and wait. I remembered thinking, why in the world do you have your brights on? The brights would illuminate the driveway to her home. It was almost blinding when I would get out of my car and walk to her porch. It annoyed me how bright it was, even across a highway. It started happening more frequently, and I didn't think much of it. I thought maybe it was a different vehicle, or it was someone waiting on another person. I then began to get paranoid. My friend started noticing it too. It would happen anywhere between 7 and 10 p.m. Didn't matter what day it was. The days would change, but it only came if it was just her alone or if it was just us two. A few days ago, this person got more bold. My friend dragged a mattress into the living room so that I could sleep on it, and her boyfriend could sleep on the couch with her. We all stayed there together that night. The sun went down and one set of her window blinds was pulled up a little. If you were standing outside with the height of her home, you could see us laying down sleeping. I was getting sleepy but not completely tired enough to close my eyes, so I got on my phone. If you look out the window, you can see a flashing sign to a gas station. I laid there and noticed the flashing as it illuminated her room ever so slightly. Then it disappeared. I thought how odd it was when I began noticing it. Then the flashing started about 5 minutes later, and I felt at ease again. A few minutes later, I heard crunching sounds, like someone was stepping on twigs and leaves outside. I started to tense up and locked my phone so I could focus on what I was hearing. It stopped, and so did the flashing light. All I could hear were my friends lightly snoring and my own breathing. My pulse was racing. I looked at the window and saw nothing but a black shadow in front of where the light would be. The shadow then turned and the light flashed in through the window again. I sat up and slowly walked to the window to lower the blinds. A truck started up shortly after. I was then panicking inside. I walked to the bathroom at the end of the house and opened the curtains to see a truck with its brights on drive away from the bank parking lot. This person crossed a highway on foot just to look inside her home. They waited for probably 10 minutes outside our living room window and watched. The next morning I brought this up to her and she had a look of pure horror. She described how she noticed the truck at the bank and how a friend of hers down the road had an incident where a black truck parked across from her house when she was coming home and eventually pulled into her driveway when they saw her vehicle parked, knew she was inside. They beat on her friend's door for a few minutes, would leave and come back just to beat on the door again. They left when her friend's boyfriend arrived. All I know is, be aware of your surroundings. Always notice the little things. And to this shadow, let's never meet again. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Please be sure to leave a like on the video, comment, share, and subscribe for future content. Email all of your true scary stories to thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. I will leave a link to my email in the description box below as well. Till we meet again, stay sinful.